Welcome to the Hall of Fame. We have a great guest, Luuk. He's going to talk a little bit about maritime terminals. Those are the port terminals, expansion, what to expect in 2026. A great episode. But as always, before we get to have a pretty lengthy talk, we're going to talk a little bit about our industry update, what's going on. A lot of things to cover here. So let me just kick it off with the UP-NS merger. UP-NS merger was just rejected by the Surface Transportation Board. It was rejected on January the 16th. If anyone is aware, the UP is a Western railroad. Obviously, the NS is an Eastern railroad. They're trying to merge. There is no cargo train that runs from New Jersey directly to California. They meet in Chicago, or they can meet in some other places. I think they can meet in Atlanta. They can meet in Columbus. They can meet in Kansas City, and then connect to the other railroad. This would allow your railroad to run nationwide. Obviously, the BNSF, and I'm sure the CSX has an issue with that merger and is challenging. I know the BNSF has a lawsuit fighting that merger, but just want to give you an update where that stands. It could mean, I think this is good for the customer. Overall, I think just having a straight run through on some of these lanes, especially going from the largest import market, which is Long Beach and LA, going to a large consumption market, which is the New York Northeast market. So obviously there, I will keep you updated as that go along. There'll be more and more going on there, okay? All right, what else? Oh, 3PLs. There's a lot of changes coming to 3PLs. There'll be some strict financial accountability. And what's happening is there are a lot of brokers out there that are brokering freight that truly doesn't have a real bond. So what's happening is the poor trucker gets the load, he runs the load, the broker gets paid, he may go out of business, and the trucker is left holding the bag. So they're putting some strict rules around the bond carriers to make sure you actually have $75,000 or you have a real bond to pay it. So if the load is ran and the trucker does not get paid, he can apply to the bond, and the bond company will then pay him and then get it back from the trucker. That's a major issue. A lot of scams, a lot of things going on in that brokerage space, and this hopefully is a step in the right direction to help clean it up. I think that is going to be major. The rail network itself is still recovering from the snowstorms, obviously, with the amount of snow that we had, especially in areas of the United States that normally doesn't see snow. Okay, it's different when it snows in the Northeast and the Midwest and the Northern Plains, things of that nature. But when it snows in places like Texas, Tennessee, that doesn't get snow, that does not probably have snow plowing equipment, that's a major issue for those places. It's still a major issue even for the railroads itself. So they're digging their way out. They said they expect that to come back by the end of next, by the beginning of next week. So that's about the first or second week in February, as this will air on 1 February. So FMCSA is defending their new foreign driver restrictions, and there's a lot of people attacking this. But again, this is based on some of the accident they've had with drivers that were not licensed, and also drivers that are driving equipment from other countries that are not, especially Mexico, that are not quite up to par. I expect that to continue, and I don't expect to budge in that, especially with this administration. Now, some things to throw out. I didn't give that in January on 2026. They're expecting freight growth compared to last year of 3 to 5%. I am a little skeptical. That is not my prediction, but that is what they're looking for. And again, our surge season, which is the end of 25, saw a 6% truckload increase in surge volume versus the previous year. So that really bodes well what's going to happen in 2026. Overall, they said cargo growth last year was 1.6666%. And looking overall, they expect a decent 2026 with some of the restrictions that have happened, and then the freight obviously is coming back. The only uncertainty is what's going on in the tariff markets. Remember, tariffs affects imports, which kind of throws the network. And it doesn't affect the amount that you consume unless the price change, but it still affects the way in which the commodity gets to you. So some other few things we talked a little bit. We talked about it on the podcast that's coming up about the Suez Canal. When you talk about maritime shipping, There are some versus going around the long way around Africa. There are some people testing that out again. Apparently, there's agreement with the Houthis. I don't know how long that will hold. So hopefully it does. That will open up the Suez Canal. It affects Europe a lot more than it affects the USA. But I think it's important to let you guys know that. Overall, we're expecting a good year in 2026 in trucking. I'm looking forward to it. I've been in this industry since 1999, and I think it's about time for it to bounce back. Went through some dark years, which I call the Great Freight Depression, and I think we're in the process of getting out of it. So, with that said, let's get to our excited episode. Luuk, our terminal global specialist, next on the Hall of Fame podcast. Welcome to the Hall of Fame podcast, and our sponsor is Fullbay Software. Whether you're running an independent shop that does tractor or trailer repair, or your in-house shop within your fleet, Fullbay Software will improve proficiency, productivity, and overall profitability for your shop. Please check out their software in our description wherever our podcast is consumed. And now, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. We have a great guest from Amsterdam. We have Luuk, who is a maritime terminal specialist. I'll let him introduce himself. And we're going to get into about a 50-minute discussion about what we see in terminal space, maritime space, and anything else he would like to discuss today. I think you're going to enjoy this guest. It's someone that's helped me a lot with a lot of the articles we've written over the past 12 months. So, Luuk, take it away, sir.
Yes, I can. Thanks for having me here. That's, I think, what I supposed to say in the beginning of a podcast. But no, great that you reached out to me. I think indeed we had some contacts a year ago where you followed some of my posts and really appreciated that you asked to repost it, because there are many people that don't do that. So
as a matter of fact, let's hit on that. Yeah, it's funny. I write articles from time to time, and it's crazy to me. You're not the only one when I contact people. When you take some time and write something out, I believe it's your personal information that you have done the research on. So I always ask, but you're like the fifth person says, "Oh God, people just take it and don't ask." I've never understood that. It's crazy to me that LinkedIn works that way. But even if I'm going to take a picture, I don't know how you sourced it. Obviously, you have more contacts in that international supply chain transportation space than I do. If it's in the US, I can get it. And absolutely, I'm going to ask for use it. But I guess that's not the norm, but that's just the way we do business here. So I think that's how we met and how we start talking. So I'll let
exactly. So I appreciate that a lot. And that's also, so I'm happy to join this podcast. Although when I was looking at it, then it is mainly about trucking in the US. That is not my specialty. I'm more focused on, let's say, container terminals and more in a global perspective. But happy to discuss anything on that.
Yeah, before we go further, let me just address that. We have obviously hit a lot on what's going on in the U.S. But again, if you even realize my partner in this manual, he's from Austria, and they worked in Europe prior to coming here. And I've gotten a lot of questions about the maritime business. So one of our goals this year is to improve our guests to include. I'm talking to someone from Maersk, who probably want to come on next and so forth, to at least get about 4 or 5 episodes that touch on that part of our business, because I think it's important. So that leads you to why you're here. I thought of you first, obviously, because of the relationship we've had over the past 12 to 14 months. So go ahead and continue, sir.
Yeah, so I work in APM Terminals. That's one of the largest global container terminal operators in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm responsible, therefore, for finding new terminals where we would like to operate. So it's kind of a global role. I always compare it a bit with, I don't know if you know the board game Risk, that where you look at the entire world map. You have your competitors in certain countries. You look yourself for opportunities, and that's how we try to find new ways of operating container terminals all over the world.
It's well, I don't hate to get sidetracked. That game Risk is probably the game I played the most as a child, other than Monopoly. Probably I liked it more than Monopoly.
Exactly.
Absolutely love that game. So it's on my iPad now. I don't play it as much as I used to, but I downloaded about 4 years ago, and I hadn't played this in 20 years, and I played it quite a bit on my iPad for about a year. I haven't played it a lot lately, but yeah.
And I think it's more relevant than ever.
It is more relevant. I mean,
with
extremely.
Geopolitical changes, and who are your friends, who are your competitors, your enemies. You have to find ways to win that game. And I think the name in it itself, Risk, is already. I mean, you sometimes need to take risk. You sometimes need not to take too much risk, and that is where you need to find a balance. And I think that's also part of my job.
It's a figure. So okay, so let's stick to just putting terminals and things of that nature. What do you think? Where is prime real estate where people are looking to expand? And I'm not looking for anything internal from your company. I'm talking about if you're generally looking at the landscape, where are some areas that people would be looking to expand to more so, like a bigger footprint than they had in the past 5 years?
I think the demographics are important for that. So of course you have some of these things that now happen on the real short term, which changes maybe some demand and supply on the short term in certain areas. But on the longer term, I think population growth is very important, because then you will see if countries have population growth and middle class incomes grow, then everybody wants to have a washing machine. A washing machine normally needs to be imported through a port, so you need more ports. And I think there what you see on the longer term, where parts of Asia, Africa, they're really with a large population growth expectations, that are the places where I expect that more ports will be required. In other countries where you see that the more mature economies with some less population growth, there's probably less required. And I think that's also, I mean, if you follow the news nowadays a bit, that's also what you'll hear, of course, of many companies looking into certain regions where to invest in, and maybe less in other regions.
Yeah, I've seen, I looked at some last year's stats. I was just going through some stats in general, and they said when some of the tariffs had hit, per se, let's say China, probably the largest hit, there was a lot of shifts through Africa and in Latin America. And Africa is what some people have always said to me. It's like the unforgotten land, but it has a lot of natural resources and has a lot of inexpensive labor, if you want to call it that. So do you see that kind of being a large growth in the next? And the thing with infrastructure, just so my audience is aware, you don't buy and open a terminal in a year. So I'm talking about over the next 5 years. It's an investment and it takes time and so forth. So do you see that as being a large expansion area?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point that you raised there at the end. I mean, if you look at shipping, for instance, a ship you can go somewhere else. If a tariff hits in a certain country and the neighboring country, it's not affected, then you go to the neighboring country with that ship. But with terminal infrastructure, that's completely different, because you cannot just overnight place additional cranes in the terminal or do a complete investment where you invest in the terminal. So that takes years. And if these shocks on the short term happen, it's not that you can just change your entire port layout. And I think that's important to understand. You invest upfront a lot in a port, and you hope that you can remake that investment over a certain amount of years. But then you need to have some stability, of course, and that is nowadays becomes a little bit less secure, especially on the short term. What you see, I mean, you saw it a few years back with COVID. It also brought shocks that some ports needed to close, other ports benefited from that. But that's also what you see with the Red Sea closure, for instance, over the past 2 years. And I think all these, although it are maybe temporary shocks, it has an effect directly on ports and terminals.
Okay. Well, you actually helped pivot me to it. There are two things I want to ask, but let's stick to the Red Sea. So apparently there's a deal with the Houthis, as far as I've learned, and people are opening up on the Suez Canal versus, I forgot what exactly, so the long way around the bottom of Africa. Do you see that fully opening this year, or what do you think will happen there?
Yeah, I think that's difficult to say. And to be honest, I'm not aware of this Houthi agreement. I do know that some shipping lines are trying to go back and testing it, but that are not the large amounts yet. So we'll see. We'll need to see how that will develop over the coming weeks and months. But yeah, it's difficult to predict. I mean, if you know what happens tomorrow in the news, something could change this entirely, and especially with the moment that you broadcast this. If I predict something now, it can be totally different. So I would not burn my fingers there.
I wouldn't. Yeah, we know when you're dealing with an organization like the Houthis, which are backed by Iran, you never know what's going to happen. I think that will shake itself out once whatever has happened in Iran, whether the people will overthrow them. I think that's a political thing. I try to stay away from those things as much as possible. Let's pivot to something else as we talk about infrastructure. And I may butcher this name. The company that owns the ports in Panama, is it P.F. Hutchinson? Is that the name? Did I get that name right?
That is the name.
Oh, okay, great. They're trying to sell a lot of their terminals. Is there a reason for that? Are they just trying to diversify? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah. Also, there it's a bit difficult to say anything really on that. I mean, it became a bit, let's say, geopolitical because there are, of course, key ports in the Americas. I think what you have seen since that announcement last year that changes have happened, of course, with the US trying to get influence there, but also China. And I think that's currently a bit unknown what exactly will happen there, but that it is important and that a lot of people are looking at it. That's for sure.
I hear it. Even Blackstone has brought in. There's some other. Has looked at. Yeah. Well, I mean, Panama Canal controls a lot as you talk about coming into the Americas itself. All right. So as you look at the European terminal market, are you expecting to expand in that market? I mean, just not specifically to your company in general.
No.
Are you expecting expansion in land, in cranes, or maybe some ports that haven't been used a lot?
I mean, yes and no, but I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the European market is a more mature market, so there's a little bit less growth than these other regions. But there are ports that have big expansion plans. So, for instance, the largest container port of Europe, Rotterdam, there are currently expansion ongoing to increase the capacity of for container ships. So you see in certain ports definitely that there is still room for expansions.
So let's say, is Rotterdam the port that's completely automated?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. So in the port there are multiple terminal operators.
Yeah.
So and some of them are fully automated, and others are not. But for instance, APM Terminals has a terminal there which is fully automated.
So is that? I mean, how many? So would you say? I mean, I've never been around it. I've seen the YouTubes.
Well, you are welcome.
I will come. Make no mistake. I lived in Europe. I hate to get sidetracked, but I lived in Europe in the military for about 5 years total. I lived in Germany, so and I traveled Europe quite a bit. So I'm very familiar with Europe. Love it. I almost stayed in Europe after I got out for a little bit. I thought about it, but I ended up not. So yeah, I'm very familiar with it. So are there any other terminals that are mostly automated? I know it's something that's coming here. We're getting a lot of pushback, obviously, from the longshoremen because they operate the crane. So you have a battle of people versus technology. But are there any other terminals in Europe that are more than 50% automated other than Rotterdam? Any major ones?
Yes. So yes, I mean, there are multiple terminals, but I don't know exactly what the percentage is, if it is 50% or not. But I know in Antwerp, automation is ongoing. And in Spain, you have multiple terminals that have levels of automation, and some are not fully automated. But then, for instance, only the yard cranes are automated and the key cranes are not. But I mean, in many terminals, you see a push towards more automation, and that's not only in Europe. I mean, if you look at China, if you look at some new ports in even in Morocco, for instance, they're very far in automation.
And I think it's coming. I think the terminals. There are obvious terminals that are fighting. There are some that are not. I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, I went into an Amazon warehouse 6 years ago, and the lights were off, and all you heard was woo, woo. It was just the forklifts moving around, picking things, and I'm like, and it was 40 degrees. They didn't need heat, and they just needed it not to be freezing. And I don't think a guy came out. They didn't even loaded the trucks. A guy came out and just closed the doors of the trucks, and that was the extent of it. So I'm sure the automation is here now. I remember when Anheuser-Busch, now InBev, did that in New York, which was almost about 15 years ago. They had replaced everyone that worked in the warehouse back into the manufacturing itself. So they didn't displace any jobs, but obviously I can get the concern from people. So
yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
There are advantages and disadvantages of it, of course. And I mean, also, I don't know how many years ago it was, but when the container was invented, before that, there were no containers, and it was probably also people. Oh, now we get containers. Now we cannot. We need less people because the bags on our that we have on our back. We don't need to do that anymore. So I think now you will also see you have that with containers. You will have that with everything that is new, of course. And,
yes, it's evolution. It's disruption. Whatever you call it. I give you a better example. I mean, we've had the ocean container for a while. I remember when the 53-foot container within the United States, within the Mexico, United States, and Canada was introduced, drivers said, "Oh, you're going to take away all the driving jobs." And honestly, what it did was actually create a better job, because instead of driving from California to Chicago, you drive from Chicago locally and you're home every night, and you drive from California home every night, and the train does the rest of it. So it did not create what people thought. It did not. We now need drivers as much as we did yesterday. So it did not eliminate anyone, just create a better job versus you driving out, stayed on the road for 10 days and off for 4. Now you're home every night or home every weekend. So I think it's not all bad as long as it's approached properly. So what else? Tell me, is there anything else I need to know about terminal business for 2026?
There are many things. So it depends a bit what of your interest. But
tell me whatever is on your mind. I've got through my questions. I'm curious. Tell me anything that you want to share.
I mean, what I mentioned, I think it is a very interesting place in time to be in ports, because I mentioned ports are long-term investments. You see nowadays that many things all over the world change quite fast, and that means what I mentioned with demographics, but also especially with geopolitics. So you have a lot of different type of operators. You have state companies, you have private operators, and they all compete for infrastructure. And I think until 5 to 10 years back, ports were not that much in the news. I mean, it was seen as a bit of boring. It's a piece of concrete with some steel structures on it. But now more and more nations see that it is critical infrastructure. Because if a port doesn't operate, the shelves in the supermarkets will be empty very soon. And I mean, the discussions are ongoing on the Chinese cranes. Probably you've heard that also, especially in the US, and that makes it a very interesting industry, because you talk about critical infrastructure, you talk about a lot of different players, and that for me that is just something that is very interesting. And if you every day in the news is something, there is something happening in the port, there's something happening with a shipping line. With labor, as you mentioned. So I think for me, it's very interesting. It's also one of the reasons that I post a lot of it on LinkedIn, just to share these insights that I have or that I find interesting, and I see a lot of people share that, and it's one of the
well, I share quite a bit that you post. So I agree. I will tell you, it's even worse here in the US. I'm telling you, I have been into supermarkets, things of that nature, and I think a sneaky feeling people think the stuff is made in the back of the supermarket. I'm telling you, I've had people say, "Well, can't you read another?" I said, "No, we don't have any till tomorrow." Well, isn't it in the back? I mean, I don't know whether they think there's a full DC back there, or they think it's made back there, but the misconception up until recently with the tariff uncertainty that we've had, people have started to realize, oh, well, that's imported. Oh, that's not made here. And it's kind of opened people's eyes to some things when you can't find it. We're like, wait a minute, that's not made here. So I'm telling you, it's been a lot of growth in understanding supply chain, logistics, transportation, maritime in the US than you've had pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, I don't think anyone knew anything about ports or anything.
Exactly.
It's about your layman, your dentist, your banker, your so forth. So
then you couldn't get your toilet paper, and then everybody started, well, where's my toilet paper coming from?
That's a great one, because that's one that it's one of those things that you don't think about, that people like, wait a minute, we can't get toilet paper? And then people try to understand how that is sourced and things of that nature. So I think it's good. I think people, I don't expect people to be logistics professionals, but I think we should have a vague understanding of how it works, how the ports works. I think the Panama Canal coming into play, a lot of people say, well, why is the Panama Canal so important? Oh, that's how we get to the East Coast. So I think a lot of those things are important. So yeah. Well, in closing, is there anything you would like to say to us? I give it up to, and also we'll link his LinkedIn when we post this, because I read his LinkedIn quite a bit. Some great stuff. But we'll link it when we post this. But is there anything you want to close? And I give an opportunity to this.
No, thank you very much, Ken. I mean, again, we are in a similar type of business, but it's also pretty far away. I mean, trucking in the US versus ports, more focused in ports, and being in Europe. But I do think it's nice to see that, and to have conversations just a bit outside your, let's say, comfort zone, to learn a bit more. And so thanks for that. And really appreciate to have this conversation.
Well, thank you folks so much for being on the Hall of Fame. Luuk, I call him my global terminal specialist. So have a great day, sir.